Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story TV and the Her Story podcast. This is Getrude Matshe here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. When I met her, I felt like I was looking in a mirror and staring at myself. Only difference is I was white. Jules is an amazing woman who feels like a sister from another mother. It gives me great pleasure to welcome her today. Jules, I want you to tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Morning, Getrude. Hey, lovely to see you. It's awesome.
Well, wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just blessed to have met you, really. So my name is Julie Routledge. Everyone calls me Jules. I'm 68 years of age, or 68 years young. And I'm a grandma to two beautiful children who live in Sydney. I'm based in Sydney. And I want to share my story with you. I feel, what else can I say? I need to tell my story. Oh, I don't need to tell my story, but I want to tell my story because it's an amazing journey that I've had. And I would love to share that with you. So I have a background in lots of different skills and knowledge. And during my life, I did a personal development course and I ended up doing a project in Sydney for women in prison. And out of that project, I realized there was a beautiful connection between women who didn't know each other and could share their stories with each other. And after I did that, I went to a barbecue to my next door neighbor. And there was a guy there called Tomo who was sharing his story about Zimbabwe. And I don't know, the penny dropped and he sent me an email and I realized that I could create something else. So all of a sudden, much to the craziness of my family saying, "What are you doing, Mum?" I hopped a plane from Sydney to London and then London to Harare, where I met a short lady and a tall man, didn't know their names, and took me to the bottom end of Zimbabwe, where I met this amazing woman. So this is a story. This project is called AFADU, Aid for Africa Down Under. And when I met Azelle, who's the lady at the other end, she had been at the, how do I say this? She was in a political uprising. This was to do with Mugabe. And she was all of a sudden left with lots and lots of AIDS orphans. So we chatted and talked and I made her a promise, actually. I made her a promise that I would help her and help the community. And that journey led me to a lot of different things. But what I wanted to share with you really is the fact that this whole journey for me is about the difference between me feeling disconnected and connected. And that subject for me is really amazing. When I was a kid, I have two sisters. I lived in a house, I lived in a separate room, a bit like, but not quite a princess, but like in the purple room, separate to my sisters. My mother always made me feel super special. And my sisters used to always say, "Oh God, look at you. You've got a crown on your head, you know, Princess Jules," like this. And I always felt like a little bit separated or disconnected from them because they were having fun in the other room, right? And I wasn't. And my mother decided when I was a teenager that I should enter this competition. And it was a competition for the National Heart Foundation of Australia, which involved fundraising and connecting with people about promoting what the National Heart Foundation did. And I thought this was fun. It was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fundraising, which is great. And unbeknownst to me, I went down that track and I won it. And I became the Queen of Hearts here in one of the states here, which took me to London, where I met my first husband. So if we go down that track, I suppose what I'm trying to say is my projects in my life, which I've done quite a bit, have let me see the disconnect that exists today. And the projects that I've done, including Aid for Africa Down Under and another women's project in Sydney, have been so amazing, because what it's done, it's connected people who didn't know each other through some sort of project, right? And what blossomed out of that has been amazing for me. So I suppose my journey and my story has been about that. It's been about the fact that I love connecting, and it seems to be particularly women together, to share stories through some sort of project. So the latest one, which was 15 years, is, as I mentioned, Aid for Africa Down Under. And at the moment, I'm creating a project called ARC, which is a global women's project. And it's really about the same thing. It's about connecting through love. And clearly there's a lot of other things in there, like knowledge and skills. But my main reason for existing, I mean, as Gertrude would say, it's my gig, which is a funny way to put it, I suppose, is about showing that connection through love and just having people's dreams be a reality. Look, I remember the first day I went to Zimbabwe and I met this little girl, and she was sitting under a tree crying. And when I asked her why she was crying, she said, I just want to go to school and I don't have a uniform, and, you know, how can I do this? And I said to her, look, if we could teach you how to sew and access the fabric, would that make a difference? And she said, yes. So as a team, we did that for her. She went to school, and Patience has become an extraordinary young woman, educated, with dreams of her own. She's currently very clever at languages, so she's working in an embassy in Harare. So, you know, for me, it's also about, I've had this thing about this deep feeling that if you believe in somebody and you listen, then you can make a huge difference to them. And that's probably been my life. I'm not sure, Gertrude, what else to share.
You are incredible, Jules. You know, when I think about the timing of your going to Zimbabwe, you probably went at the worst time of Zimbabwe's history. What were you thinking? That's when everything was going wrong, politically, economically. It's almost like you walked into a battlefield. Now, I know that you experienced some of the regime while you were there.
Yes.
Share a little bit about your experience. You know, I'm from Zim, and whenever I share the story of growing up in Zimbabwe under the dictatorship, a lot of people can't quite relate to me, I think because I'm African. Share with us a little bit about what you experienced when you were in Zim.
Well, firstly, I arrive, I'm very white. I land at the airport, and, you know, there's just Black Africans everywhere and little old white me, right? So I felt really like weird, separate, like not part of the local culture. And so I felt sort of a little bit, very scared, actually, intimidated and very nervous, because as you said, in those days, Mugabe was basically imprisoning, actually, particularly white people with cameras. And, you know, I'm a big film buff, and I'd taken lots of cameras and video cameras. And actually a friend of mine in London said to me, look, if I just take way too much alcohol, I can hide the cameras. And then the customs people will just take all the alcohol and not take the cameras, which happened. But my experience generally was, look, at a community level, I could see suffering, complete and utter disconnect, not just from each other, but from the whole world, which for me was like not something that I had really known at that level. You know, there was poverty, there was disconnect, and I ended up in the southern end of Zimbabwe, and my whole experience was about witnessing that disconnect, witnessing what that meant in terms of life for these people. And I started looking at how we could reconnect them to each other within the country, with each other within the community, and then reconnecting them to the world. And this for me was like mind-blowing. But I'm telling you, every time I used to arrive, they'd know I was there. They'd send the donkey cart to the house where I was staying on the farm, and I'd get the notice to go to the police there, and they'd always say to me, look, we've just prepped your cell. We've even added a little window so it's a little bit more comfortable for you. But lots of stories like that, Getrude. Lots of stories of, taking film, being arrested, threatened. Yeah, it wasn't pretty.
It sounds like it was a life-changing trip, though.
It
You
was
got to see something you would never have experienced if you had stayed in Sydney.
No, and I'll share one other thing for you. On the way out, and I actually got sick. I got stabbed by a prickle, and I ended up with cellulitis and staph infection right up my right leg. But as I'm leaving Zim, by that time I was hobbling and wasn't very well, and I was also on an anti-malarial treatment, which made me sick. And I was with this amazing man who I'd originally connected with. I think it was in Bulawayo or Harare. I can't remember exactly where, probably Harare or just outside of there. And I came up, and that morning I was turned 50. I was exactly 50. So this is now 18 years ago. And Tora said to me, oh, you don't look very well. And I say, no, I'm not. And he said to me, so why are you here? It was the most incredible question, because you don't normally ask people. Well, you sort of do, but not at that very deep level. And, me in my chatty Cathy way say, oh, I'm here because, I meant to make a difference, and I connected with Azelle in the southern end. And then he just stopped. It's very powerful for me. And he goes, but really, why are you here, Jules? And I, again, reiterated, I'm going to create a project and try and connect everybody. He asked me for the third time. And I said, well, clearly that's not the answer then. And he says, you're here. It's like, actually, it almost brings me to tears when I talk about it. He said to me, oh gosh, you are here to find the truth of who you really are. And that's what that project did. What he said at the time, as I left Zimbabwe, crying, thinking, don't know why I'm so upset, But he was right. That journey of being with those others, reconnecting with them, really connecting with them at a heart level and creating something amazing which made a difference, really has led me down a path of really knowing who I truly am and why I'm here. So, yeah, I get a bit teary when I talk about it.
Wow. Jules, it's so important for us to share these stories. My whole passion around the Her Story movement and why women should step forward and share these experiences. You walked into a completely different world, a world that most white women from Australia never get to experience. And you got to come back and share that story with your community, with your friends. You ended up doing some incredible things. So in our next segment, we're going to come back and talk about how you recruited a few friends to go with you to Zimbabwe, the work you've done in the last 20 years. I know it's almost coming up to the anniversary of when you were last there.
Correct.
So we'll take a little break. And in this break, I'm going to share an invitation to all of you ladies out there who are listening to this interview. There is power in our personal stories. The Her Story movement is asking you to step up, come and share your story of your business and entrepreneurial journey, your health and wellness journey, family and relationships. In the creativity section, you can even come and dance, sing, paint a picture, play a musical instrument. Social justice, is there something that you stand for or stand behind? And of course, spirituality. So this is an invitation for all of you to join us. We're recruiting speakers for our summit here in October and in November. We need you to step up and share your story. We'll be back in a minute, Jules.
Thank you.
So the website, herstorycircle.com. Please come online, come and share your story, be part of this amazing movement. So Jules, let's now go back to what happened after you got back home. You've now got this seed in your heart that you cannot shake. They say that when you go to Africa, Africa gets in your blood. It's almost like the dust you inhale reminds you that we all come from that continent. Every human being on the planet came from Africa. Take us on the next part of your life. What did you do after you got back?
Well, I arrived back in Sydney, and of course I was quite ill by then. And I went to my doctor, and he said, "Oh, you have cellulitis in your right leg, and we need to do something about it," right? So prior to me going to Africa, I'd done a project for women in prison here in New South Wales. And it was a quilting project. And again, it was about connecting women to women and sharing stories through that. And they were doing some of their quilts were being exhibited, and I went to that, and I could hardly walk. So I got really, really ill. I ended up going to see my sisters to celebrate my 50th, which I never did. And I ended up in a hospital. And in that hospital, I met a lady called Pam, who was my nurse. And she looked at me and she goes, "How do you end up with this? This is not like something we would call a first world symptom or something that you get." And I shared the story. And then I shared to her that I had made a promise to a woman in Zimbabwe that I would help have her dream become real in some way. And she goes, "What does that mean?" So I drag out all these little sheets of paper which have umpteen lists of things the hospital needed, the community needed, what they wanted, what they were trying to create. And she says, "Oh, I can help." And she comes back the next day, and she's got this little box which is like, a foot by a foot with lots of things that the hospital basically can give away. And I said, "That's great, but I think my box is a bit bigger." And she goes, "Well, how big is your box?" And I said, "Well, it's more like a 20 cubic foot meter container." And that was the start of my journey of Afadu, actually. I realized then that, I could actually get together a team of people who could help and contribute. So that's what happened. All of a sudden, by sharing my story, and that's literally all I did, was share the story with everybody I know, this project just spun out control, actually. It got to the point where we had a company, and we still do, and I'm not chairman of the board anymore, but we have had a company. It's a not-for-profit. We had collecting depots around Australia. We sent lots and lots of containers in those days when things were needed. What I realized is the more people that were sharing that story, it was like a spider. When I look at it, it's like a spider web. One person told a story, and then it just spun out. So for me, that really told me what the connections really look like. Like when you tell your story, the connections and what was possible was actually unlimited. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
You inspired others to step forward and make a difference as well. Sometimes we just have to be the example of the possibility.
Correct.
And now you're planning to go back to Africa. It will be 20 years later, and your project still exists. How does that feel?
I'll probably get upset because it's very beautiful for me to watch the small kids that I used to see as babies rolling around in the dirt near open fire pits, basically, develop into amazing people with amazing opportunities in all different fields. And I'm going to go back and see them and just acknowledge who they've been in this whole journey, and I know at our end we've done our bit. And I know that the reason why that's happened is because I personally believe in people, like that something's possible for them. And that's all it's been. And I feel very humble, actually, when I talk about this, because, you know, without their resilience and their courage to actually believe in me and believe in us at this end, none of this would happen. So for me, it'll be the first time I've been back in a long time, and I'm taking my 3 sons, who range from like 41 to 38, who live in different parts of the world. So I'm absolutely blown away by this, because they've seen this for like 18 years. My youngest has been once when he was 18, but the others have never been. And as a result of telling that story, I now have other people saying, who were involved and have been involved on that journey, who want to come. And then another couple of friends who would love to know about this more, who are also coming. So that's the power of the storytelling. So
Absolutely wonderful. It's just wonderful to see this. So if we could imagine that time is an illusion, your past, your present exist in the same timeline, and I could teleport you to the younger you,
oh wow.
young woman who went out to Zimbabwe, had no idea what she was getting herself into, but she said yes. Based on what life has taught you, let's say there's a young woman who's listening, who wants to make a
Yes.
difference in the world somewhere.
Yeah.
What 3 nuggets of wisdom would you share with somebody who feel that they are on this planet for something more than themselves?
You know, that decision for me to go could be said like, you know, going along the skinny branches of a tree and jumping off with complete fear and intrepidation. And that's how it is for a lot of people when they want to do something and they have a thought or a dream about something possible or a business they want to create. Is quite scary. So some of the things I would say to somebody is just go for it. Put your wings out and jump off, and just know that there will be people, when you create something extraordinary, that will be there to help you on that journey. Just believe that what you do and what you create is possible, and when you share it with others, it's a journey together, which it was as exciting. That's what it's been for me. It's really about sort of trusting that, you know, that it will be great, and trusting that you're not alone, I suppose, because a lot of people think they have to do it all on their own. And it's not that. It's about sharing your story, believing in yourself and believing in others, and just taking a leap. You might even say it's a leap of faith if you're that way inclined. But yeah, have a go. You know, what have you got to lose? You've only got things to create.
I love that. And now let me take you into the future.
Oh, yes.
To the 120-year-old you. You'll probably live that long based on how you're living your life.
Oh, wow.
And if you could have a conversation with that woman, that amazing woman who has impacted on so many lives, based on how you're living your life right now, what would you say to her?
I'm happy. I've loved the journey. I'm gonna leave and go out thinking, yeah, I made a difference. I've become who I truly am, which is what it's about. And who I truly am, in whatever that looks like, in all the facets and aspects of who I am at all the different levels, is enough and can make a difference to myself and others. That's it, pretty much.
And you certainly have, Jules. You have left a legacy for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. This is a story that will be told for generations to come. And a lot of people don't realize that we can all do this. We all have that power within us. We all have this ability to make a difference. So I really thank you for being you. I thank you even more for showing up in my life at this
Thank you,
pivotal
Getrude.
moment in time. Like I said, I feel like you are just a sister from another mother. We were born out of the same cloth. and we are going to do some exciting things together. I can really feel that. We've had so many people who have been reacting and responding online. So we have Ruth Dengwani. She is the Her Story movement chairperson for Africa. She's saying from Zimbabwe right now, wow,
Wow.
Jules, can't wait to connect with you when you come to Zimbabwe. So you'll get to meet Ruth.
Wow.
And the other people who've tuned in on Facebook, let me tell you how many countries have been listening in. Katian is a friend of mine I think she's in St. Lucia. She's in the Caribbean. I might get the country wrong.
Nice.
But Dr. Tanya, who I interviewed this weekend, is in St. Lucia, definitely. Astrid is in Norway. Faustina is in the United States. Another good friend of mine from Botswana, her name is Kao. Kao is now living in Germany. She's also tuning in Germany. And then we have Janine in Senegal. So just in these few minutes, we have been connecting with people right across the globe. And that's the power of the internet and how we can flatten the world using this technology for good.
Yes.
So thank you for being such an amazing source of inspiration, Jules. Like I said, I'm excited. I feel like a little child who's opening up a box and it's Christmas and I have no idea what's coming.
I know.
Thank you to everybody who has tuned in today. Step forward, share your story. They say that the richest places in the world are graveyards because they're full of people who had amazing ideas, amazing stories, and they never had the courage to share them.
Correct.
So don't go to your grave with your story. Thank you, Jules.
Thank you, Getrude. Have an amazing day, and you are a gift. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. See you again when I interview yet another amazing guest. Bye for now.
Bye.